Hey guys, how are you? So I've just been doing some reading on the fall fiscal update from the Liberal government of Canada. They're trying to remediate some things and monetize throughout the next few years to better manage debt GDP ratios, which has become inflated with inflation as well. So the level of percentage, I think, is below what it normally is. They could say and arguably say it's at all-time low, considering 7.7% versus 10.7. This is inflated because of inflation, which is inflating GDP, so that ratio is a little bit exorbitant for the time being. Until inflation comes down, you'll actually see the true proportion representation of debt nationally that's going on. A big thing within their update is the Bill C-18 that got royal assent earlier this year, the Online News Act, which is pretty controversial in the first place. Excuse me. Some people could really challenge the grounds on its viability by defying the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, knowingly imposing this bill, knowingly knowing that Meta and Google would block all news content as a direct defiance of freedom of expression and representation and freedom of the press and news within Canada, which is a chartered right. One could argue that imposing that bill in the first place, knowing that Google and Meta would take such recourse and action and shut down all news within Canada, defies the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to all Canadians of freedom of the press and news. Sorry, I'm getting a call. So you could almost put it on a ground of unconstitutional. I'm surprised the bill reached royal assent in premise. Obviously, the courts, Senate, everyone has evaluated this, but there's a strong case to be made that it's unconstitutional based off the reactionary, presumed reaction of conglomerates to shut down Canadian news. Something 120 odd billion, or million rather, is being paid out by the federal government to news agencies because a lot of them are having hard times. Journalists are losing their jobs. There's a tax rebate that's kind of doubling the rebate incentive that some journalists can get this year. That's great. But the government needs to get on, now that they've reached royal assent of this Online News Act, to get on their horse, for example, let's say, and try to encourage with Meta some sort of proportional representation. There's even more discussion now that even on Google and Engines, news representation may be cut completely. They need to figure out some sort of way to incentivize this percentage and proportional representation that's coming from Google and Meta for advertising online Canadian news. It's been null and voided for some time, and the government's now paying out to these agencies, news agencies, to aid and support, which was kind of happening before anyway. The imposition of this bill was to try to remediate that, and nothing's happened. There's just been a media blackout on this thing. So it's great. The fall fiscal update too doesn't include some other things, I suppose, like the National Pharmacare strategy that the Liberals may put in place. They got some tough waters. What are they going to do strategically in the next, I don't know, the next year and a half before the election? Are they going to continue to spend? That budget doesn't have anything on a national pharmacare policy for everybody. That was inclusive. I think it's like 11 to 12 billion a year in the first year and second year and such. So that would definitely inflate again the budget's expectations, and some of these other things we've been talking about would get exacerbated as well. So yeah, there's things going on with the Liberal strategy. Are they going to continue to spend, go into the election like this, roll out these programs and justify it? You're going to try to manage it and do some internal costing like the imposition of C-18 was supposed to do, to try to get Google and Meta to pay their fair share and have government reduce coverage to news media agencies. We'll see what happens with them. But yes, anyway, this Bill C-18 has reached royal assent. It's time to get on trying to get Meta and Google in some sort of context of a percentile of advertising costs going to the agencies, and deflect some of these things, because it's encouraging when you see in the news the federal government's giving tax rebates to journalists and small enterprises of media representation. But it's time to really step up and put that bill to good use and do the talks with Google and Meta to make them and hold them accountable while you're trying to clear up some room to maybe throw down a pharmacare policy, right? If people can back it. Anyway, have a nice day. Bye.